Okay, cool. What is up, everybody? My name is Richard Terrell. I go by Kirby Kid, and you are watching DO Live. Every now and then, I like to look back at my Splatoon highlight clips that I make when playing Salmon Run and talk about game design. This is another one of those episodes. I do this often enough because I love Salmon Run. It's one of my favorite games of all time. We're just going to go backwards through my clips and see why I took these videos in the first place. Oh, I don't even have my sound. Oh, so close. No. Oh, no. Okay, there. Alright, so this is a recent run of Salmon Run. It's all the weapons are Grisco weapons. So they're more powerful than normal, but they all have a unique kind of drawback. The weapon I have now has great range, great power, great reload speed, but or it's really bad. Well, great fire rate, but you run out of ink so fast that you often find yourself reloading. So that's its only drawback. But otherwise, it's a great weapon, even for painting. We've been playing this. We're pretty close to maximum hazard, so the highest difficulty that the mode ever lets you play, we are really close to playing on that level. And this is how intense some of the endings can actually get. So as you can see, eggs are everywhere. We need to get these eggs in the basket. We are 15 out of 23 eggs to meet our quota to pass. And this is how intense things can get right at the end of the round. So it's foggy, so you can't really see out the door. You can't really see what's out there. That means enemies can sneak up on you a lot more easily than normal. And on this level, the home base is inside of this small little hut that you see that has 4 walls, so normally you couldn't see very much, and on foggy levels, when it's like randomly foggy, you can't see hardly anything. So like enemies will just come into the base and cause problems really easily. Lots of eggs. You just got to get 3 into the basket, and look how hard it is. Rain, missiles, everything coming in, dodging enemies, not being able to survive, but I got Marcus back. So like right here, you can't hear the callouts because the Switch doesn't capture anything that we're saying on Discord. But we're giving callouts, and we're trying to figure out who has the eggs and who can get them to the basket and who's close enough. And that orange laser cutting across the screen is my ally to the left, shooting down the middle of the lane there to try to free up some space. I popped a jetpack because I knew it was going to be pretty intense. I hear one egg going there. I have my egg in, I put it in. I tried to get the last one. Bleach dies. I die, and I see Marcus, and he's saying, just get me back, just get me back, just get me back, just get me back. And I'm like, well, I'm not close enough, so I'm going to shoot my shot straight at you. And he barely got it in before we ran out of time. So yeah, lots of limited information here, lots of things that the players have to figure out how to process and then communicate with their teammates. So, I mean, that's just kind of one of the interesting understated aspects of co-op shooters like this. Just understanding what's happening is half the battle. It's really information warfare, and everybody has a limited perspective, and everybody has a limited amount of time to talk about what's important or what's coming in or what's happening, and being able to put that together as a team really reflects some higher level skill. We were talking about it before. It's like what you say in your call out is highly sort of specific to how you evaluate things as a player, but also what you think the team can respond to. There are certain callouts that seem obvious, but if you say it to people who aren't ready for that information, it could be worthless, or even worse than worthless, actually detract from their ability to play well. So we've been playing with each other for a long time. We know what to say. I kind of wish I gave you some examples of our callouts, but there's another DO video I put out there that's actually live streaming this game for like 4 hours. So if you want to hear us yelling at each other, be my guest. Missed. All right. So this is a perfect example of what team callouts can do to help you play more efficiently. These scrappers here are armored from the front. You can see they're looking through a little plate of glass and they got metal, but they're completely vulnerable from the back. But when they're chasing you, one player, you can't really get to their back. So they're really an enemy that encourages some team coordination. If you shoot them at any point like that, they stop and turn to the shooter. So oftentimes we're like, hey, you shoot. If I have the more powerful gun, you shoot him to spin him, and I'll kill him from the back. If you don't coordinate that properly, these guys can hold up so much of your time and progress, and they just become a roadblock. So in this particular clip, we are absolutely well coordinated. Before, we used to mess these things up a lot, but now it's just like, you hit him, I'm going to be ready, we're going to stop him as close to the basket, 3, 2, 1, go. And this guy just explodes, right? Like, in an instant. Steelhead, I have the long-range weapon, so the only really long-range weapon. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of this. Finish him off. High damage output means I can take out these enemies pretty easily. Rain coming into the base, so it's getting really green and orange. We want it to be orange, so I shoot a couple of shots there, kind of wildly. Rain coming in the front, so I clean up that area too. Juke the eel by going forwards and backwards. And then there's an eel behind me. I think somebody called it out, otherwise I probably would have been dead. This gun can take out the eels pretty easily with its power. So, like, you can look at my movements. Instead of going directly at the thing that's in front of me in the camera, oftentimes I make these weird sideways decisions. Like, here, I don't shoot the thing in front of me because I'm coordinating with my team. Here, I take that guy out, take out the enemies, and instead of going out the door to help fight, I stay in the middle because I hear what's coming in, and I'm making decisions based on that information, and I just don't leave the middle. I think I heard 2 eels coming in. I'm like, okay, well, if I know 2 eels are coming in, I have to make sure that they die quickly because these guys are huge blockers. And I decided my time is better spent staying in the hut and taking those guys out. Even though we have 2 lasers and rain and missiles coming in by now, we can hear everything happening. I prioritize being in the base, and that's just a really clear example of why higher level play and higher level teamwork may not look like what you expect. Okay, so we have 14 out of 21 eggs at the beginning of this clip. I dodged that big fat guy trying to hit me with a frying pan, jump down, put an egg in. Okay, so there's a moths coming up at the back of this, a giant sort of shark-like fish that comes out from the bottom. A clunker, a junker that I just talked about that blocks things with its metal face. So I'm backing up and spinning this guy around, trying to temporarily disable him so he stops spinning. And then I go over here to try to get to where some of the eggs are because I know the eggs are on the right side. Fire Cakes just came from the right side, so he's putting an egg in the basket. And I saw a shot of orange come this way, so like, okay, this is where all the eggs are. And then immediately when I see this stinger and this fly fish, I'm like, we are in trouble. We have 2 people dead. You can see on the top left side of the screen, 2 black X's. That means 2 people are down and 2 people are up. In order to get 4 eggs into the basket with 20 seconds. It's not a little bit of time, right? We're not like at the down to the wire. But all this pressure, all this rain, all these lasers, all these missiles really can make something really simple very difficult. So I just make the immediate decision to pop a jetpack, shoot that guy down, and I hear my 2 friends that are dead. I'm like, okay. Boost over, shoot my brother, shoot fire cakes. Marcus uses a splashdown, kills everything in the area with that huge explosion, except for that fish. And I deposited an egg from my jetpack. And then get the last one in. So it's a lot closer than it should have been. So just looking right here, it's 1 egg, 2 eggs. Fire cake just died. So not a lot of time left. I take care of the threat. I lure some enemies out because they're following me. I shoot over their heads to get my friends back. They immediately start popping their specials because we got to kill stuff. Fire Cakes uses a bomb rush at the bottom. And I'm like, we still need 4 eggs. I have 1 egg in my backpack. So right before my jetpack returns me to where I started, I go into squid form, deposit an egg, fly backwards, land on the spot where I knew the eggs were in the first place. Now this clunker would have totally stopped me from getting by, and maybe even we would have lost a round. But somebody pops a laser and sweeps it just a little bit closer this way. Or did somebody shoot it? Fire Cakes? Did he turn around and shoot it? Somebody got me through that. And I was like, okay, cool. And people are like, 1 egg, 1 egg, 1 egg, 1 egg. I'm like, I got it. But it was still super close. If I missed any of those shots, that would have delayed us by half a second. That's a big deal. Half a second or a second of damage put into that guy blocking that doorway could have been the difference between it fully blocking me and not. Like, so many little things can go right or wrong depending on how clear and how quickly you make your decisions. Pink. By the way, this weapon has piercing properties, so I can shoot through enemies. So I aim at the tail of the eel, this big eel coming to the right, through this big fat guy. Yeah, I didn't like the way that looked. Man. So this is some of my favorite things where you make a jetpack count. So you get 2 specials. You can see in the top right corner, there's 2 little like silvery packages in the HUD. Those are your 2 specials you get. You have 3 rounds, and you have to decide when to use the maximum of 2 specials. This is round 2. So in general, we try to not use specials on round 1 unless we're going to lose, like you saw in that last clip. And we typically use 1 in round 2 and 1 in round 3. If you can not use them until round 3, that just sort of makes things easier, hopefully. So putting in eggs here is the beginning of the round. Things are still relatively calm. I go out this door and I see all this, right? And I'm like, there's a scrapper. There's a long tower of a stinger. There's a missile launcher flying on the left. And then I see an eel. I'm like, nope. This is way too much, sort of, too many deadly enemies that you have to go out and kill. This tall tower dude never leaves the shore, so you have to go all the way out there to kill it. Unlike these other enemies, which always come towards wherever the players are. And I knew this was gonna take too many of our resources if we let this get worse. So I shoot that guy. Shoot that pod, shoot the stinger down, and 1 shot right in the center of it knocks all those pots away and it falls. Shoot this eel to weaken it so that when it gets closer to the base, it'll die more easily. Take care of that basket, and right before I drop out of the jetpack, I point around the fat guy and flick that shot and destroy that last tower. Looming up. I'm like, no you don't, and he blows up. I'm like, cool. I just took out like 1 fly fish, 2 stingers, weakened an eel. Yeah, and that's all really I could do with that many shots, and I just shot some enemies. But yeah, it's a good use of a jetpack. So right now I'm going out of the base to lure enemies towards me to free up some pressure for my allies. And now it's really calm in the base. So, classic example, 12 out of 22 eggs, 30 seconds. We're about halfway to our goal, and down to about a third of our time left. So one of the hard parts about this level is your base is in this hut, enclosed by these 4 walls. Enemies can come in from the front, middle, the left, and the right side pretty easily. Not to mention just shoot through the walls like you see this green laser doing right there. One of the interesting parts is when enemies chase players, right? It's just a really simple concept. Like, oh, they follow you around. Lots of enemies follow you around in games. But when you're talking about a game like this, where it's an enclosed arena, movement is a really big deal. You can move vertically along walls and on the floor, but you got to paint it, and every time the enemies move along those same spaces, they also paint it in their colors, so it's a constant battle of back and forth, back and forth. Little things like this where you're like, I'm going to go out of the base and make things follow me. So now that eel, that big steel eel, or the steel head, is looking at me. The steel eel, the scrapper came to fight me. This drizzler right here, which is like a rain missile launcher, it's like an umbrella thing, just launched a missile. It's looking at me. This scrapper, these 2 scrappers, these little blockers I told you about earlier, they're looking at me. That's a lot of activity that would have just been pouring straight into the base that I was able to destroy too. So one thing I love about these steel heads is when you give them damage on their bomb that they toss out of their head, it stays, right? So if you shoot it once, the next time he throws a bomb, it's still going to have like that 1 shot of damage. So it's cumulative, and you can work it over with multiple shots over time instead of trying to like get 0 to maximum damage all in one what do they call that? Cycle. So here I knew it was just 1 shot away, and that eel that didn't follow me in, it's going into the base, you can see on the right. But since I blow up the steelhead head, the explosion, as you can clearly see, this round circle destroyed the eel as well, which is super convenient. So not only do you rout enemies with your movement, and every subtle move you make is important. If you juke up a wall, you can cause an enemy to go around the long way or target another player. If you lure them out, you can buy time for your allies. But depending on how you move too, you can set up situations like this where you can cause chain reactions. And there's games like every extend extra that specialize in lining up enemies and doing chain reactions, but it's just something that kind of happens naturally when you make action games like this. You throw enough enemies into the same space and you have just any kind of dynamic effect where they can affect each other and or you, and you can get situations like this, which I find very engaging and particularly deep considering how simple and intuitive they are. Hey. Next. So I think we might be getting back into some clip territory from something I've shown on the previous episodes, but we'll see. Because these weapons look old now. I don't remember playing with these weapons recently. Yeah, I think I remember talking about that one. Yeah, and I barely got out of the way because Marcus was shooting it or something. What was it? And I flip around. It was Adrian shooting it? Yeah. Cool. So those are all the clips, just highlighting little things. Every time I play this game, just more and more of its design and what I find interesting about it just becomes more apparent. I say these clips because cool things happen, not because I'm trying to repeat anything that I've said. So these are all like new things that are occurring to me as I'm playing. I'm like, ooh, save a clip of that. Ooh, save that. So I love this game. I'll continue to play it. Let me think. Splatoon is running out of Splatfests. They are no longer going to update the game very much, and it's been about 2 years. But yeah, still one of my favorite games of all time. I've learned a lot about I was able to clarify a lot about game design and how a lot of these simple principles work together and why they work, and what things would interfere in having them work so well from playing this game. You know, a lot of what you see here, the design principles from the enemies to the movement to the guns and stuff, are things you've seen in other shooters perhaps, or definitely exhibited in other Nintendo games, but for some reason I've never had an example of design like this so clear. I guess horde modes aren't too popular. Shooters, especially when Nintendo, aren't popular. So when you have a Nintendo style shooter that does a horde mode, you really do get a shining example of some of those really sort of form-fixed function and gameplay first philosophies applied to a multiplayer shooter. So one of my favorite games of all time. I will do more streams in the future, but less and less Splatoon and more VR games and more other games that I purchase on Steam. So until next time, guys, peace.